Welcome to our explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that's fundamental to all of us, and that is reproductive health. Let's get right to it. So, when I say reproductive health, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of people, it's probably just about having healthy organs or not having a disease. But as we're about to see, the real definition is so much bigger and more meaningful than that. And here it is, straight from the World Health Organization. They define it as a state of total well-being. And that's the key word, right? It's not just about the physical stuff. It's about our emotional health, our behaviors, and even how we interact with others in society when it comes to reproduction. The goal is a world where people are healthy in every single one of these ways. All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with India's health strategies, then get into the population context that made them so necessary. After that, we'll take a closer look at contraception, tackle some other big health challenges, and wrap up by looking at the future of parenthood. First up, let's talk about India's approach. This is actually a pretty big deal because India was one of the very first countries in the world to create national programs with the social goal of achieving total reproductive health. What's really cool to see is how this all evolved over time. It kicked off way back in 1951 when it was just focused on family planning. But as you can see, the vision got a lot broader. Today's programs are all about reproductive and child health care, which is way more holistic and looks after the whole family. Okay, but why? Why was there such a huge push for these programs to begin with? Well, to get that, we have to look at the numbers, because the change in population during the 20th century was just incredible. Let's set the stage. Back in the year 1900, the entire world population was around 2 billion people. Just keep that number in your head for a second. Now, fast forward just 100 years to the year 2000. That number exploded to 6 billion. It tripled in a single century. And this was mostly thanks to better healthcare and living conditions, but it also put a huge strain on resources all over the world. And this global trend was especially true for India. By May of 2011, India's population alone had crossed the 1.2 billion mark. You can just imagine the challenges that creates for everything from food and housing to schools and jobs. This led to all sorts of media campaigns to encourage people to have smaller families. I bet a lot of you will recognize this famous slogan, Hum Do Hamaru Do, which means we too are two. It was a simple, sticky message that really became part of the national conversation. But, motivating people is one piece of the puzzle. You also have to give them the tools to actually plan their families. And that brings us right to our next section, the different methods of contraception, or birth control. This table gives us a great bird's-eye view of the options. They basically fall into a few main buckets. You've got natural methods that are all about timing. Then there are barrier methods, like condoms, which do exactly what they sound like. They create a physical block. You've got IUDs that are inserted into the uterus, and oral pills that prevent ovulation. And finally, you have surgical methods, which are a much more permanent way to block sperm or eggs from getting where they need to go. Let's zoom in on those surgical options for a sec. They're also called sterilization, and they're considered a terminal method for good reason. For men, it's a vasectomy, where the tube that carries sperm is blocked. For women, it's a tubectomy, where the fallopian tubes are blocked. The key thing to remember is that while they are super effective, they are also very, very difficult to reverse. So, we've talked a lot about planning and preventing pregnancy. But reproductive health is about so much more than that. It also means understanding and dealing with a whole range of other health challenges. A big one is STIs, or sexually transmitted infections. Here's the really important part. Many of them, like gonorrhea or syphilis, are completely curable if you catch them early. But others, like hepatitis B and HIV, are much more serious and don't have a cure right now. And that's why prevention is just everything. So how do you stay safe? Well, the basic principles are pretty straightforward. It boils down to avoiding sex with unknown or multiple partners, always trying to use condoms, and hey, if you ever have any doubt at all, go see a doctor. Getting checked out early makes all the difference. Another critical topic is MTP, which stands for medical termination of pregnancy. You might also know it as induced abortion. It was legalized in India way back in 1971, but under very strict conditions to make sure it wasn't misused. It's done to end unwanted pregnancies or in situations where continuing the pregnancy could be dangerous for the mother or the baby. And the scale of this is just huge. We're talking about an estimated 45 to 50 million MTPs performed around the world every single year. That's a mind-boggling number. It actually accounts for about 1 in every 5 pregnancies, which just goes to show why having access to safe and legal procedures is such a major global health issue.
Now let's flip to the other side of the coin, infertility. This is when a couple isn't able to have children, even after trying. It's a really difficult situation, and the reasons can be physical, congenital, or even psychological. The important thing to know is that it can stem from either the male or the female partner. And thankfully, for a lot of couples, help is available. That's where assisted reproductive technologies, or ART, come into play.
And the most well-known of these is definitely IVF, what people often call the test-tube-baby process. It sounds really complicated, but it basically breaks down into 3 steps. First, you collect the eggs and sperm. Second, fertilization happens outside of the body, in a lab setting. And third, that newly created embryo is transferred back to the uterus to hopefully grow and develop. So, after looking at all of this, the history, the challenges, the technology, what does it all mean for the future of parenthood? Well, it really seems to point to one thing: a shared responsibility. At the end of the day, creating a reproductively healthy society isn't about just one magic bullet. It's a whole ecosystem. It needs good education, access to doctors and hospitals, real support for couples dealing with infertility, and strong laws to protect everyone's health. It all has to work together. And in the midst of all this amazing medical science, the source material reminds us of another, powerful, profound path to becoming a parent. With so many orphaned and destitute children in India, our laws allow for legal adoption. And for couples who are looking to build a family, it's truly one of the best and most impactful ways to do it. And that leaves us with one final big question to think about. In a world with more medical options than ever before, how do we strike the right balance between our personal choices and our social responsibility to the next generation? Thanks for joining